Welcome back to the Scale Forward podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lez, who is the founder of Clevero. Clevero is an all-in-one business management platform with beautiful UI and serious automation power that provides small to medium enterprise businesses as a platform to help fuel their growth. Lez, I'm stoked to have you on today. I'd love to hear more about your story. Welcome to the show.
Well, appreciate being here.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Again, first Aussie guest we've had on, so really keen to get your insights on Clevero and your story. Can you take us back to the origin story? What was the idea that sparked Clevero? What is it? And how did you go about getting it off the ground?
Yeah, great question. So my background was very much in technical consulting for some large organizations. And I sort of got over the corporate grind of having to work for some large organizations and automating processes for them. And so I sort of branched out on my own. I came across a forklift business back in the day that I pitched to get them onto some of the big platforms, Salesforce, your NetSuite and things like that. And they came back and just said, no, we don't want to go with them. They're too expensive. They're too clunky. They're quite old now. Can you build us one? So that's sort of the genesis story. It'd always been sitting in the back of my mind that small business needed something that was flexible, customizable, but without the price tag. And that's sort of the starting story of it. And then 7 years later, we're still around and helping a lot of businesses solve a lot of problems. So yeah.
Okay, so previous experience is actually quite common among founders that they identified a problem or a gap. What was it, or why do you think it was overlooked previously?
I'm not too sure it was overlooked. I think the hardest part about small to medium enterprises is they often start out with the founder or the business owner themselves, and they're the technical expert, and they just do whatever they can to get by. And then as time goes by and their business grows, they start using different platforms. Before they know it, they've got 6, 7, 8, 9 different platforms that they're running to run their business, and they're not technical savvy. And then they've got to think about, well, I've got data in one platform, data in another one, but I need the visibility to see my entire business in one place. So I think that's sort of where Clevero comes into it, is we sort of bring all of that place, get rid of all the subscriptions, bring it into one place, all in one, and allows you to really see the heartbeat of your business in real time.
It's kind of like the aha moment when they see it, like, yeah, we can save costs all in one platform.
That's right. Yeah. You see, we don't know when that happens, but that aha moment does come eventually, and they start to go, oh, wow. So we can do this in your platform, so we can get rid of that. Yes. And then they start to tick off all the different platforms that they can use and sort of get rid of. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell you. I can't imagine how many like enterprise businesses, how many softwares they're subscribed to sometimes when I talk to them, and the cost, and just mind blowing. Did you have a founding team, or was it just you in the beginning?
It was just me in the beginning. Very early on, though, we brought on a new developer who's acting as our CTO, as a co-founder. His name's Kit. And then subsequently, James McCarthy has come on board as well as head of revenue and growth. So there's 3 of us as the founding team.
How did you go about finding them, or knowing that they were the right people for the team? Obviously, there's so much talent out there these days. What's the key to finding the right people to work with?
Great question. For me, it was about knowing myself and what I was really crap at, and trying to find complementary skill sets to complement me. And that has been a good thing, but it's also been a bad thing, because when you have different skill sets, you also have different working styles. And I have no doubt that I probably grind some of them a bit the wrong way, but I think vice versa. So it's about being self-aware of what the strengths are, but trying to find people that complement that where you're not potentially as strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. Iron sharpens iron, right? And I think it's really important to surround yourselves with people that are better than you at certain areas that as long as you're self-aware enough, lacking it. And you read a lot of these books, and it is really about the team and filling those gaps. So whilst I think it's natural for a lot of leaders to clash on a couple of things, at the end result is usually pretty good. Some pretty good.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. You hope so.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of horror stories as well.
That's true. So you pitch Clevero as an all-in-one platform. Can you give us a rundown of exactly what it is, what you do, what's the magic?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess take a look at traditional software, and out of the box, they will say that they do all-in-one, and they probably do. But a lot of the time, it's very much hard-coded to a specific industry. Our platform, the special sauce is that we're a low-code business management platform. And that's a real buzzword. So basically saying, whatever you can think of, choose your own adventure, we can bring it into the platform. So out of the box for us, we have your standard CRM, project management, invoicing, time tracking, et cetera, to run your business. And you can automate all of that. However, anything else that's outside of that box, that's just running on spreadsheets, we can bring it in. Because at the end of the day, every business has their own unique, I guess, process or unique thing that makes them special. And that's often not covered by a specific software that's out of the box. So we can bring that into the platform and essentially have a true all-in-one play.
What were some of the, we touched on it before, what were some of the early reactions that you got when you were approaching businesses? Did they, I mean, you said that once they get it, but can you dive deeper on that? What were some of the initial reactions for people who maybe didn't understand it? How did you bring them from unaware to a bit of awareness to a, I need
look,
this?
to be honest, the journey sort of goes in a few stages. The first stage is the business owner is like, I've got a problem. My current software is not working for me. Solve that for me. So we're so far away from that enlightenment moment. It's very much find me a CRM, find me something to manage my business, and you do my invoicing, because that's my pain point. So we solve for that first. Later down the track, once that's resolved, we then give them the visibility. So then on their dashboards, reporting, alerts, notifications, they can start to see the heartbeat of their business and go, where do I need to spend my time? And then that probably the third step of that phase, I would say, is they get to that idea of, actually, now that I'm not worrying about my foundation of my business, now that I know exactly how my business is performing and my team know how they're performing, I've actually got all this mental space and energy to figure out, I've got this idea that I've always wanted to execute on. How do I do it? And it's those sorts of conversations that come into it. I'll use one quick example is a business that we work with does dental visits to childcare centers. So imagine you've got 30 kids in a childcare center, a dentist goes online and they see 30 kids in a day. And that's all they did. Now, we built the platform to run their entire business, operations, alerts, notifications. But now, a year down the track, they've gone, actually, we also want to do hearing tests. We want to do speech pathology, optometry. And because that idea has now come in their mind, they're like, they can do that. Whereas previously, everything was manual. They were doing all the bookings over the phone or like email correspondence. They were doing reminders via SMS, but they were sending out SMSs manually. There was just too much noise in the business to even think about what are possibilities to really grow and scale the business. So that's one, I guess, story or use case that we've used that's been really successful.
It's the classic, isn't it? Free up your time so you can work on the business, not in the business. We've all heard that.
Yeah, and look, I'm guilty on it as well, right? It's about when do you find that time? But that's
well, hopefully with
true.
your tool.
Absolutely, with the tool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good segue. They were looking for ideas on how to evolve their business. How and if has your ICP, your ideal customers, evolved as you've grown Clevero?
I found that our customers have really grown as a whole. So once they get the foundation in and understanding how they want to run their business, they've organically grown because they can and they can scale that. The best ICP for us, though, businesses that are growing, number one, they've got maybe 4 or 5 staff and they're trying to scale that up, or they're struggling to scale up because of restraints on software and technology. Turnover wise, by the time you got 3 or 4 staff, you're probably turning over $1 million minimum anyway. And we've gone up as much as $50 million in terms of revenue for businesses. It really is, up to the business and when they're ready. It's actually more on the business owner of, hey, I've had enough of this grinding with the same tools. There's got to be a smarter way to do this.
Okay. How are you finding currently acquisition? Through what channel is your best channel?
We're very lucky. Most of our customers come through referrals. They're referrals from existing customers, they're referrals from partners. So we run a partnership program with referral partners as well as implementation partners. Yeah, we're very lucky like that because we've got customers that love us and are happy to refer us on. And yeah, it's a good thing that the product's nice and solid.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. But you didn't start there, right? It takes a long time to build brand awareness and loyalty and all that sort of stuff. Imagine if we could start there, that would be bloody
It would be.
fantastic. So how did you build up to that?
Good question. We've tried a lot of things. Cold emails, your LinkedIn
How'd that
strategy.
perform?
Which one? The emails or the LinkedIn?
Yeah, so cold emails, and then we'll get to the LinkedIn. I mean, we're talking back in the early days, like 7 years ago, right? Cold email was probably still banging back then. Now, you ask anybody, you say cold email, so are you still running with that?
Yeah. So look, it worked all right at the time. We found the quality of leads wasn't the best. At the same time, back then, we were still figuring out who was the right customer to target for us. Yeah. And then I think as the time went by, as you said, industry has changed now. The view of that email marketing and cold email is like, oh, go away. It's just the same generic email sort of a thing. And I'm big on authenticity. So cold emails it doesn't quite sit as well with me. And yeah, we don't use it anymore.
What about LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is a great source. I think organic messaging from my own personal profile has helped a lot. I find that when that's running really well, I'm getting people that are following or messaging me, quite regularly as just a general chat. We don't do any advertising on LinkedIn. It's very much just all organic. We don't do that whole connect with somebody ad hoc and try to reach out to them or anything like that. Not because it's probably something that on the radar that we might want to try, but at the moment we're sort of just trying to keep up to date with our growth at the moment, and that's just another noise thing to add in there. So yeah.
What kind of stuff are you posting on LinkedIn to get that organic interest? Because with AI, I think most of us can sniff out an AI post from a mile away now. Like you just said, like connecting with someone, adding them, following up with a message is not something you're doing. So what do you think is a good little hack or tip that's worked really well for you from your post on LinkedIn?
I would say just one, be authentic, but two, simply just try to help. For me, I assess the day-to-day of who did I speak to today and what problem was I solving for them. And then I just sort of go, okay, I'll write a quick post on that and then just chuck it up there. And I don't do it with any intent of trying to get a lead or anything out of it. It's literally go out there and try to help somebody and provide value with zero expectation of any return. And it's funny how having that mentality makes it easier. You don't overthink your posts. You don't think about, oh, am I going to get likes or anything? I'm like, I hope one person reads it and gets something out of it. And then, and then hopefully that just builds up over time. Yeah.
Yeah. Posting for something for likes is not it. It's at all.
Definitely not.
Especially for people who aren't aware, like are most of your clients in Australia?
Yeah, most of them are in Australia. We've got a couple overseas, but most of them in Australia.
Right. Like what am I trying to say? The Aussie market receives marketing so differently to the US market, for those who probably haven't played in both. Bit more straightforward and authentic for the Australian side, like just cut the crap, to be real. US is a little bit more copywriting tactics and all that sort of stuff. So I think if you're, depending on which market you're playing in, is how you should position yourself for the messaging and not for the likes. But Les, running a startup or even starting a startup and we touched on this earlier, is a crash course in lessons, not mistakes. What are some of the lessons you learned the hard way? How did you overcome them?
I'll put this as a lesson. I didn't personally have to go through this lesson, which is good, but my friend who was in a startup did. I would say get your structures right for your business and your shareholder agreements early on. I had a friend who started up a business. There's 3 business partners involved, all of them directors, all equal shareholders, but they didn't have a shareholder agreement. And 2 years into their journey, they were doing really well, and 2 of the directors really wanted to keep going and push hard. The 3rd director started to run on a bit more fumes when it came to financial and needed to go back to some work. And so he just said, sorry guys, I'm out. I've got to go back to full-time work and I can't help out with the business so much anymore. And because they didn't have the right agreements in place, they were stuck with him as a director who was owning 33% of the business, while the other 2 who still weren't drawing a salary at the time were continuing to drive and push value for this other shareholder director who was doing nothing.
Right.
So that's my first number 1 lesson is get your shareholder agreement, spend on the lawyer early on. It's worth it in the long run. And that will it saved me a lot of headaches over time when bringing on investors. It's just the rules are already there. It was laid out black and white, and I didn't need to worry about or have to deal with it because that's more noise that you just don't want to have to handle. So that's probably one of the big ones. Other mistakes I've made, and there's so many of them. Sorry, lessons, I should say. Lessons, right. I would say trust your gut. There's been times where I've sought advice from a range of different people who some are experts and some have even done what I've done, but much better and much faster and, years ago. And I've sort of taken some of their advice and it didn't work. It didn't stick. I burn a lot of money. I think you need to trust your gut. You know your customers best. You know your business best. You know your people best. Everybody giving advice is doing it from their own personal experience and with good intention as well. But they don't have all the information that you have as a founder to make that informed decision at the end of the day. And I would say following your gut is one of those really good things I would recommend. Yeah.
Especially if you've got experience in the space or you've been, let's say you've started it, you've had some small success or small wins and you're continually to grow. Sometimes I find people can be too eager to grow and reach out to people who are too far ahead. And so they give the too far ahead advice and it doesn't kind of relate to where they're at in terms of their business. And so that gap is exactly what I think you just identified. It's like, well, that advice didn't work because timing or positioning or whatever where you're at. So it's good insight there. Like, yeah, if you have a feeling about something or you trust your gut and you know your customers best, then probably just run with that. Still take on the advice. But at the end of the day, Les, like you got to try as well, right? So
absolutely,
it's a lesson, not a failure, like you said. You touched on investors. Are we able to swing over to that? You have some angel investors, you told me. How did that come about?
A lot of hard work. Look, it's putting yourself out there. I'm an introvert, and if you wanted to succeed and you need that capital to get off the ground, you need to find them. So for me, I was calling every single network that I knew that I had relationships with just to see what their appetite was, trying to pitch the idea, pitch the business, all those sorts of things, meeting with VC firms, keeping them up to date with investor emails. And look, if you read enough advice on there, the advice is actually correct. I think one of the big ones is ask for money and you don't get anything, but ask for advice and you get the money. It's a very good bit of advice because I think it's this psychological thing where the investors go, okay, this person's actually doesn't have an ego. They're keen to learn. They're keen to take advice. So they're adaptable. They're not going to be arrogant and pretend that they know it all. I was lucky that I found my first investor, put in a 100K check through an existing network and I'd worked with him for a long time. It still took me a good 6 months worth of catching up for coffees, telling him how I was going, telling him what the business was doing, where the product was at for him to come on board. And yeah, it's hard to say what it was. Yeah.
Did you have revenue or profit at that point? It's like, so what I'm trying to piece together, like I've just started, at what point should I pitch investors?
I think you need to, so at the time we definitely weren't profitable and we did have revenue though. So we had revenue quite early on, which is it's a blessing and it can be a curse because if you have revenue and the investors say, well, you haven't really been growing. Like our story was we got our first paying customer from day one, but we didn't have a product. So we spent the next 12 months building the product out. If you go to investor then you're going, well, hang on, you're taking what, $500 a month, but you haven't grown for the last 12 months. What's going on? It's more about how you can tell that story and explain that. And that's why the investor updates are super important.
Right.
And in terms of timeline of when you should, I would say you want to do it well before you're going to run out of money. From my you'll be surprised. I know you hear stories of, businesses trying to raise money and they've only got 3 months worth of runway. Like, it's going to take 3 months worth of legals and back and forth and negotiation to even get the signed contract, let alone the money. I would say you want to have a minimum of 12 months runway and you want to be meeting all these investors and talking to them at least minimum 18 months out of when you really want to pull the trigger. And yeah, that's probably my advice. And look, lesson learned, we probably didn't raise as much as we wanted at the time. I would go into every single pitch assuming that it's going to be a no. And in the back of your mind, as any business owner is, I would go in assuming you're not going to get any funding whatsoever and work off that. Imagine you got $0 from everyone. What would you do to keep your business alive? How will you survive? How will you make things work? Do you need to go drive an Uber? Do you need to go work a part-time job? Do you need to sell your kidney? Whatever it might be, right? So,
Right. I sold my hair to fund my company.
I've got a lot of white hairs coming out here.
Yeah, you get close, you can see it in the beard too. That's part of running a business, isn't it? So
It is.
these investor updates, is that something early on you started knowing full well that that's the route that you're going down?
No, I think that it was very much, I fell into the trap of it was a craze. Like, everybody back then was raising money at crazy valuations. Do I think that we would have gotten to where we are now faster than we did if we got a lot more money? Yes. Do I think I would have spent the money and wasted some of the money? Absolutely. Not having the full investment forces you to make hard decisions about what you're spending money on. But at the same time, the capital that we did raise through our angels, in total, I think we've raised about 550, 600,000 over the time. That has absolutely helped us stay alive, and get us to where we are today. Could we have done it without it? Yes, but probably a lot slower. That's
Right.
probably the best answer I could give you. Yeah.
What did you spend the money on that was the best return on investment? Was it your team? Was it software? Was it advertising?
Because we got
Can
the
you even
money on.
disclose?
Yeah, no, I can just go. It's not as black and white as that. You say, oh, you're going to put the money into advertising and marketing, or you're going to put the money into the product. The reality of it is you pull the money, you also pull the money of revenue that you make, and you just spend it across the business to make sure
You do
where
everything.
you need it to do everything.
Right.
Early on, we had to spend it on product. We had to hire more developers and get the product to a stage where it could stand on its own 2 feet. So that's where we spent most of ours on. And now I think if we got more capital, we would definitely go down the pathway of growth, marketing, a bit more brand awareness, maybe even a new geographical play, those sorts of things.
Okay. I want to touch on that later, but you said development of the product. Where was the product in the beginning to where it is now? Well, actually, that's not the question I want to ask. Is since you first started to where you are now and into the future, how with AI, how is the business management software landscape sort of changing? What are the trends that you're seeing?
Great question. I think to get a product off the ground as an MVP using AI is super, super quick now. I think anybody
Agree.
could get something off the ground, within weeks. I think where AI is going from a B2C place, so from the consumer side, I think every human being that uses AI is going to be way more efficient at what they do. I believe that they need to have a bit of expertise in that field, because you're still going to need to know what looks wrong or what is wrong versus what is good. I think in our space, there's a lot of places for it to work in specific feature sets, but I think as a holistic connected ecosystem, I think it's going to be very hard, at least at the current state. Maybe give it another 3 or 4 to 5 years, maybe, who knows, even faster, and they might get somewhere. I think, again, I met somebody the other day that said that they going to have a AI that can build an entire platform from ground up. And I sort of take a step back and I'm going, sure, how are you going to do all your servers, your redundancies, your backups, your 2-factor authentication? There's so much there that you don't know about when you're building a product that needs to run an entire business end to end. That's probably overlooked or not even thought about.
Right.
But I think in our space, a separate app that you might want to run off a database is super achievable really quickly if you know what you're doing.
Are you guys looking to implement some of this or capitalize on this? Are you positioning yourself to look to use AI more into the future? I mean, it's AI, right? Like the tech is just going to be a hockey stick growth. I think every business is going to have AI to some form, but you're thinking about it. Are you looking to the future of that to capitalize on it if and when it's available?
100%. So we're utilizing it a lot now internally, and we're starting to look into where are the best places to use it. We're more leaning towards a AI around business intelligence as opposed to using AI for, draft me up an email or create an image or anything like that. So ours is more like, use AI to say when is potentially the best time to reach out to a client, or using AI, using the existing data that you have in our platform, use AI to decide this customer is at risk of churning or whatever it might be. So that's sort of the pathway we're heading down a bit more.
Okay, so more for like data and stuff rather than client-facing communications.
Yeah, look, I think there's, any sort of, I'm typing to Google right now, all the different tools that have been spun up overnight that can write you an email or LinkedIn post. That's not the place that we're going to play in.
Right. Chat GBT rappers. I mean, they're raising millions and it's incredible. But yeah, I agree they're not always great. They're great for some things, to be fair, though, analyzing data and what you said, and then coming up with maybe 80% of what you need, and then having a human do the last 20 to make it really good. But in terms of like one-click solutions, I'm of the opinion that no, we're not there yet. Not yet.
Yeah. Not yet. Soon. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So let's circle back. You said you're focusing on growth marketing at the moment. What are you currently doing for that, or what do you think you'll be doing to get to where you want to go?
So we rely heavily on our partners. So for us, we want to be able to feed them leads and feed them customers on our platform. So yeah, we are very much looking at strategies around LinkedIn, very much because we're in a B2B space, targeting not only our end users, but targeting IT consultants, CRM implementation consultants, those sorts of businesses who are looking for a tool that's flexible, that can really scale their customers and make their lives easier. Yeah, ads probably not. We might need to do a bit more on our messaging. I think it's always important to keep tweaking your message that you're putting out there, to at least take a snapshot and go, hang on, is this still relevant? Is this still what we do? So, yeah, I'd say LinkedIn's our main focus at the moment. And then obviously you've got other things around brand awareness and things like that. We even started looking at potentially at radio ads, TV ads, back across signage, just to get that awareness of like, hey, that's a logo that I recognize, those sorts of things.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. Like a lot of do I want to say younger founders? That's old school. That is old school, right? Like it's back to sort of grassroots in marketing before we had the internet. And so why do you think you would go down that route? Because you said no to ads, which I'm guessing like Google ads and pay-per-click and all that sort of stuff, but yes to ads on the old school. Why?
Good question. I think our target's business owners, and a lot of business owners we feel will be sometimes driving in their car and they'll see a bus ad. And, as any marketer knows, it's about the number of impressions and visibility.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny as I'm in growth marketing, right? It's like, it's what I do. And when you said exactly, it's like, is this the best one? And then when they ask me that, is this the best channel? And I don't know. They look at the business owners looking and go, what do you mean you don't know? It's like, I don't know. Like we have to test it. And then we have to test the other one. And then the data will show which one is best. It doesn't matter what I think. It's about what the data says and what your customers relate to the most. So it's so hard being in marketing these days, because you can go and get this, I can acquire a customer for X, we're going to make X and all these sorts of things. But you made a really good point. Go where customers are going to trust you based on your business, based on your geographical location, based on your market. Are you marketing to Gen Zs? Are you marketing to boomers? All those sorts of things take in factors. But you're right, Les, like until you try it, you're not going to know, right? And so that's difficult. But you're willing to go in on one decision and figure it out. What is the moment where you say, it's not working or it is working? Is it a spend? Is it a lack of impressions? How do you identify that? Nice. Mm. I mean, that works really great for the digital stuff, I imagine, because there's a footprint. What about for how do we measure ROI of like a bus stop? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And honestly, that is the answer. It's kind of like, well, how much foot traffic does this bus stop see, or does this traffic route see, or this bill? How much of that? And then that we're just going to average that out to a certain amount of eyeballs. We're going to run it for this amount of time, and that's just a business cost of building brand awareness. It is what it is. You can't like you can measure it, but you can't really measure it. But do you need to do it? Kinda, right? Like if you want to be recognized. So let's moving on from the whole marketing side of stuff. Where do you think the biggest opportunities lie for you guys right now and over the next sort of 3 to 5 years? Right, and you're prepping that through just conversations with all these partners and everything that we just kind of spoke about. So you said you got some big goals. What absolutely needs to happen for you to hit those goals? Right, every business's problem, right? More leads. Les, I think this has been really insightful and really great. I ask every founder this question. Do you have some advice or one piece of advice for the younger generation or the younger CEOs and founders out there? Nice. Fail forward, fail faster, fail in quotation marks. Les, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing that, sharing your insights. For our listeners who want to learn more about Clevero or get in contact with yourself, other than the website, is it okay for them to reach out to you on LinkedIn? Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Les, again, thank you for jumping on. Really enjoyed chatting to you, our first Aussie guest. And yeah, I'll put all the links in the description. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. See you, Les.